Can the Elliot Carlin Theory prove that the X-Files is just a dream? Something. This is the off week and it doesn't have a theme song yet. Do. This is all you get. Do. Welcome to the off week, the show we do at Nerd and Tie any week that we're not doing a full episode of the podcast. It's exciting, isn't it? This episode we're going to talk about alternate timelines, alternate realities, the collective unconscious, television crossovers. So basic stuff, I think, at least it is to me. Before we get started, I should explain why I came to this topic in the first place. Over on Tumblr, I ran across a post marveling at how many times Richard Belzer's Detective John Munch has shown up on different shows. Originating on Homicide: Life on the Streets, most people know the character from Law and Order SVU, where he ended up after Homicide got canceled. But the character has ended up on a ton of shows also besides that, including appearances on Arrested Development, The Wire, and the aforementioned X-Files. Aforementioned, yes. Sorry, that's my accent. I apologize. The idea that the X-Files takes place in the same universe, though, as Law and Order amused some people, assuming you don't accept the multiple Munch multiverse theory, that these are discrete iterations of the same person in multiple realities. But if these shows are in the same shared universe, everything gets a lot more complicated. You see, besides all the Law and Order shows, then the attached series like Homicide, Deadline, In Plain Sight, lots of stuff that you might now also assume are connected. Homicide: Life on the Streets, where Munch originated, also had a minor crossover of two characters showing up from the Nightmare Nexus of all TV shows. Saint Elsewhere. For the kids unfamiliar with Saint Elsewhere, in its final episode of the series, it was apparently revealed to all that the whole show, from beginning to end, took place within the head of an autistic kid named Tommy Westphall. Tommy had been a character in the series. Now, if you accept this ending, which I don't necessarily do, because again, discrete iterations across the multiverse, but anyways, if you accept this ending, it means that any show that crossed over with St. Elsewhere supposedly also takes place in Tommy's head. And a lot of shows crossed over and had their continuities intercut with St. Elsewhere, including Cheers, The White Shadow, MASH. A character had a prior relationship with a character on MASH. Like, working relationship, not sexual. That would have been weird. Korean War and all. But anyways, this is called the Tommy Westphall Theory, and a lot's been written about it. But I'm here to propose something much more complicated. Because the Tommy Westphall Theory says that, like, over 40 shows all take place in one guy's head, and that seems unbelievable to me. That's just too much. But what if the show didn't take place in just one person's mind? What if it took place in many? You see, there's another famous show that turned out to be a dream, and that's Newhart. In its final episode, it ends with Bob Newhart's character from his previous sitcom, The Bob Newhart Show, waking up from a dream and saying that all of Newhart had been a dream. Now, besides the fact that some characters from Newhart would also later show up on Coach, implying that Coach was also Bob Hartley's dream, this creates a conundrum. You see, Jack Riley played a character named Elliot Carlin on the Bob Newhart Show. Riley's character would later show up on St. Elsewhere. And at first you'd think that would make Newhart a dream within a dream, if the Bob Newhart Show is all inside one character's head, and then Newhart is all inside a character's head in there. It's very confusing, but I think you'd be wrong. You see, Riley's Elliot Carlin also later guested on Newhart. The Bob Newhart Show character showed up on Newhart. And in this Newhart appearance, he directly references his experiences on St. Elsewhere. So this got me thinking, clearly the version of Elliot Carlin that showed up on Newhart was part of Bob Hartley's dream, right? If Newhart is Bob Hartley's dream, and a person he knows in real life shows up in his dream, no harm, no foul. You know, it kind of makes sense that he'd be dreamt about. So we know there have to be two Elliot Carlins, though. A dream one and a real one, whether this is all within Tommy Westphall's head or not, right? So what if we accept that the version of Riley's Carlin on St. Elsewhere as just the dream version? I mean, we have to pick one, so why not that? What if the Elliot Carlin who was on St. Elsewhere isn't the real world Elliot Carlin, but the dream? What if Bob Hartley's dream of Newhart is also Tommy Westphall's imagination of St. Elsewhere? And what if these two imagined worlds are connected? It would mean we have two discrete realities. The real world, where Bob Hartley lives and an autistic child named Tommy Westphall lives, and a dream world where Newhart and the supposedly internally imagined St. Elsewhere exist. What if everyone in this supposed real world where Bob Hartley lives, where the imagining Tommy Westphall live, share a dream world? It's two coherent planes. It's not that different from Jung's idea of a collective unconscious, this collective dream. And since it's fiction, as long as we make the rules internally consistent, we can do whatever the hell we want, right? And a shared dream solves a lot of problems of sitcoms from the late 20th century, when continuity didn't always make sense and guest characters who looked like they were sticking around would never be seen from or heard from again. Maybe those are just people waking up. So say we have... Let's build this world. Say we have primary dreamers like Bob Hartley and Tommy Westphall. They create consistent settings within the dream space. Maybe some of the other people in the dream are just their imagination too. And we can think of these things as recurring dreams had by these individuals. Other main characters may also be dreamers and also having these recurring dreams. So maybe some of the people in the reality are just a dream, and some of them are real. Explain the murder rate in Law & Order. Other main characters, again, other dreams. Now, there are also people having one-off dreams. One day you dream you're a scientist, one day you dream you're a doctor, one day you dream you're a murderer in New York City. These are your guest characters. People who show up as many people in the same dream reality. This explains why actors from one show which crosses over with another may have previously shown up in guest character roles. And maybe it's why so many people have played multiple characters on Law & Order. It's different dreams. So many faces. But this also means that maybe a character who makes a crossover into another show, like Munch, may not be the same version. You see, what if Munch, like Carlin, exists as himself in the dream world? We know that homicide takes place in the dream world because of its interactions with St. Elsewhere, but let's take a look at Munch's appearance on The Wire. The Wire and Homicide both show us the Baltimore Police Department's homicide division. Since Homicide is based on a book by The Wire's creator, that isn't really that surprising. But the two look vastly different. And the world of Homicide, while still pretty complex for a network show, is far simpler than The Wire's. So what if the Munch we briefly see in The Wire is the real awake Munch, instead of the dream we spend more time with? And then that brings us to the X-Files. While Munch shows up on the X-Files, he's really clearly his homicide iteration. And wouldn't this explain a crap ton about the X-Files if it all turned out to be a dream? The mythology of the X-Files is a contradictory mess full of retcons and rationalizations. Wouldn't it make more sense if the entire show was just Mulder's dream? I mean, he's almost always right. Even if things make zero sense, they always just seem to get these cases which don't really work with FBI jurisdiction. Nothing really actually holds up if you think about it too long. Like a dream, but it still is a constructed, coherent narrative. You can play with this with any show, excepting that the Bob Newhart show and the end of St. Elsewhere, and now I'm saying The Wire, I'm going on record saying The Wire, are the real worlds in this universe, and then decide which crossovers are dreams and which ones are real. Like Cheers, which crossed over with St. Elsewhere, that's clearly Norm's dream, right? I'm not the only one who sees this. I don't know. What do you guys think? Does this make sense? Am I crazy? I'm calling this the Elliot Carlin Theory. It's more complicated than the Tommy Westphall Theory, but I think the two parallel the real world and a coherent, connected dream world makes more sense. So let's talk about it. I don't know. Works for me. And I'm pretty awesome. I think. I'm real, for the record.